Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered on the Legend Sport channel. My name is Joe. Today we're going to be playing a campaign mission in the game Down in Flames Locked On by Dan Verssen Games. So this was a 2018 release. It is a card game. So we don't have a whole lot of counters and there aren't any hexes, but we're going to play anyway. So we are playing scenario number 1 from the 1973 Yom Kippur War campaign. The name of it is SA7 site. So what we've got here for the Israelis, we have one Mirage IIIC, and for the Egyptians, we have two MiG-17F Frescos. You're also able to choose a bonus or skill chit for both sides. So for the Israelis, they had the option of Guided Intercept 3 or Fighter Pilot. I chose Guided Intercept 3, which allows you to draw 3 cards extra on turn 1. So I'll go through kind of what everything means, but this is a very straightforward and low complexity game and probably doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. For the first Egyptian plane, I drew Fighter Pilot, which increases its gun stat by 1. The MiG-17F Fresco has a gun rating of 0, so this will increase it to 1. And for the other MiG-17, I chose Relief, which allows you to draw an extra card if you end up canceling the enemy's tone. If the enemy gets tone, that means they basically have locked on to your aircraft, and you can try to break tone. And if you fail to break tone, then the enemy can fire a missile at you. But if you do break tone and you have this Relief chit here, you get to draw an extra card. So having more cards in your hand gives you more options. I am playing this Solitaire, so I'm using the Solitaire rules. I'll play the Israeli side, and the Solitaire rules will handle the 2 Egyptian aircraft, as well as they have an SA7 site, hence the name of the mission itself. And the way the SA7 site works is when my aircraft gets into heat-seeking or gun range and is at medium or low altitude, then the SA7 may have an opportunity to shoot at it, to launch a missile at it. So in that event, we would draw 6 cards because it says 6 cards here. The tone on here indicates that it is a radar. It's a missile site, not an anti-aircraft artillery site. That would say gun or guns. So in this event, we would draw 6 cards, and if one of those cards was a tone card, then that would indicate that the site launched a missile, and then we would go to see if the Mirage had a card in its hand that would counter the tone and break it, and if it didn't, then it would be shot down, and if it did, then the attack is over and you move on to the next turn. So I'm going to begin, and the first thing we do, I'm going to actually move the campaign out of the way here. Oh, one other thing I wanted to talk about is you have positioning for your aircraft, and typically the way they show it in the manual here is if you have your 2 cards and they're at neutral, they would be like this, kind of facing each other head on. They're essentially approaching each other. So then if one got advantaged on the other one, they would be something like this, where the Mirage is now advantaged on the Fresco, and this would be the other way, with the Mirage being disadvantaged by the Fresco. And there's also this, which indicates tailing. So the Mirage is tailing the Fresco. This is the best angle for shooting, typically for shooting like a heat-seeking missile, obviously, because you have the exhaust in the rear of the plane. And this would be the opposite of that, being tailed, the Mirage being tailed by the Fresco. So instead of using the cards for that, what I elected to do was use the aircraft chits. So these are in neutral position right now. So aircraft 1 is the Mirage, the Israeli aircraft. Aircraft 2 is this middle card here, the first MiG-17F, and the aircraft 3 is the other MiG-17, the other Egyptian MiG-17. When they're face up, as far as my perspective, looking at them, this is the normal way. So they're, since they're all oriented the same way, this would be the same as if the cards were like this. And then if I were to be advantaged, I would just turn it like that. And if I were tailing, I would turn it like this. So if the aircraft indicator is upside down, that means it's being tailed. If it's sideways, it means it's in a disadvantaged position. So that is how I am doing this. We also, a couple of other notes before we start playing. The Mirage has 2 heat-seeking missiles, 2 Shafir 2s. It has 1 countermeasure, and this is all indicated by the card. So the card tells you the amount of victory points for the aircraft and its missiles. And if it's carrying the missiles, then it's worth a little bit more. And if the opponent is not carrying missiles, you get 6 fewer victory points. So, and we have a countermeasure chit here. Again, indicated by what's in this box here, 1 countermeasure. You'll notice the MiG-17s have a 0 countermeasure, so they do not have the ability to, in this case, that would be firing a flare to spoof the heat-seeking missile. They do not possess any of that. They also do not possess missiles. They do possess afterburners, and that's what these are at the bottom. The downside of using your afterburners is, it says here at the bottom, heat seekers plus 2 cards. You make yourself much more vulnerable to a heat-seeking missile. Now, the Israelis can use that without really any repercussions because the Egyptians don't possess any missiles at all, heat-seeking or otherwise. On the Egyptian side, however, the Israeli missiles are heat seekers, so using afterburners is could be dicey depending on the range between the aircraft. So range is measured here. We have active homing, radar homing, heat seeking, and gun. And so as far as the relationship between the aircraft themselves, if one is, say, at guns and one is at radar homing, you use radar homing as the distance between them because they're, you always go with the furthest one, the most distant. And as well, if we had one at radar homing and one at active homing and your altitudes were different, your altitude would increase the range. So essentially, by being at high altitude with radar homing and your opponent is at a medium altitude, you're actually essentially at active homing range from your opponent. So that is how that works. And everything else is based on the cards, and you get, your hand is capped by your performance rating. So the Mirage 3 has a performance rating of 7. It can have 7 cards in its hand. The MiGs have 5. So they're capped at 5. And then at the end and beginning of turns, you draw new cards, and you're limited to what your thrust is. So for the Mirage, it's 2. So the Mirage can draw 2 cards a turn. The MiG can draw 1. And then the afterburner, another benefit of turning your afterburner on is you get more. You actually get a couple extra cards. So, you get 4 cards if you're the Mirage instead of 2, and you'd get 2 cards instead of 1 if you were the MiG. And I believe that's it. Here's a Solitaire chart that kind of delineates the methodology of figuring out what these essentially AI opponents are doing, your Solitaire system opponents. So these charts here will dictate what the MiGs do, and I will play as the Mirage and play the Israeli side. So to determine who goes first, you use your EW, electronic warfare rating, and the Mirage has a 1 and the MiGs have 0. You also can see here at the top that they show not only the flag of the country for which this aircraft is flying, but also its year. So this is a 1962 aircraft. We're in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. The Mirage was a French produced aircraft, first produced in 1962. Israel bought some. Obviously, they have it in there. They had it in their Israeli Air Force. The Egyptian Air Force was flying Russian or Soviet-built MiG-17s that were actually debuted in 1952, which was really like still pretty much the dawn of the jet era, and that's why they don't have missiles. They weren't built for that. Air-to-air missiles were still kind of in their infancy at that particular time. So their aircraft are a decade older than the Israeli aircraft, and that's why the Israeli aircraft is a little bit better technologically. So it has better performance, better speed, and better electronic warfare. It's also got a gun rating of 1, and the MiG's gun rating is 0. So we are ready to begin. So I get 7 cards for my performance. 4, 5, 6, 7. Each of the MiGs get 5. 5 for this one, and 5 for this one. Okay. Now we have our aircraft here. Everybody's in a neutral position. Okay. Aircraft 1, 2, and 3. All right. So I have the higher EW rating, 1 to 0. So I go first. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is adjust my altitude. I am going to climb to high and discard a card. And which card do I want to discard? I will discard my barrel roll. One of my 3 barrel rolls. Okay, so now I can use my speed for a maneuver or positioning. So I am going to try to close the range. So I'm going to try to move myself to radar homing. This is basically a free move because I have a speed advantage of 2 to 1. So they will now roll to see, and we're working with aircraft 2 here. I might as well. He has 5 cards, so we'll add 5 to his roll for having 5 cards, and he needs a 9 or more to have a chance to counter my speed move here. So it's a 3, which makes it an 8, so he does not counter. That's actually probably the wise move because it's to his advantage for us to close range anyway. So I am going to now look to see if I can improve my my range even further. Well, I guess I am going to play red line and try to pull him into, and you can do 3 range, so I'm going to try to pull him to heat seeking and put myself into heat seeking as well. So again, we will roll. He's got 5 cards still and an 8, so he is going to try to counter. So we put a card here, and he may get this card back if he pulls something that doesn't allow. So he rolled a 9, which does not allow a counter. So he keeps his card, and we're now at heat-seeking range. But I still am. I'm above him by 1 altitude, so I'm still not actually in range to shoot at him. Going to end my turn. I'm going to take my. I have 5 cards. I'm going to take my 2 cards, and I'm going to pass the turn over to my Egyptian friend here. Okay. I started them at medium altitude. You're supposed to roll to determine the solitaire fighter's altitude, and I did not do that. So we'll just leave them at medium for now. It's not a massively important detail here. We'll skip the afterburner phase because they're both at maximum, even though it's aircraft 2's turn. He's at maximum number of cards. He's still got 5 cards. So there's no need for him to turn his afterburners on because he can't draw any cards. Okay, so now we'll check for an altitude change. He rolled a 9. I am at an altitude higher than him, so he gets a +1, which means he's going to climb to match my altitude. Okay, now he's in my missile range. But we're at neutral, and heat seekers can't be fired at neutral, so I'm going to have to play some positioning on him to get him into a position where I can, and he has to discard a card when he climbs, just as I did in my turn. Okay, so now we roll for, well, speed would be next, but he's slower than me, so he doesn't get any speed advantage. Okay, so now we roll for play cards. We roll a 2. Okay, so when you roll a 2, and he gets, you add how many cards he has. He has 4. That's a 6. You need a 7, or it's basically you don't play a card. So he's actually ending his turn as well. Okay, so that gives us 5. He's at 5. Okay, now we'll move to aircraft 3. Okay, so same thing for aircraft 3. Not going to turn on the afterburners, doesn't need it. Check for altitude change, rolled a 4. Okay, he again is 1 below, so he gets a +1. That's a 5. It's still no change. Okay, again, same speed deal. No move there. We roll a play card. We rolled a 2. +5 is a 7. So just like his friend, he's not actually going to do anything. That actually ends round 1. There are 6 rounds total. If I don't complete this by then, it's basically a draw. So we're back to me. I am at my full capacity of cards, and I didn't draw. I get 3 extra cards that I didn't draw on turn 1. I'll take them now. Technically, I was supposed to use those, get those before I started, and I forgot. So this is now used. I'll throw that over there. And we don't need this right this second. Okay, so my altitude, I'm good. I'm in range here. I am going to try to get a tone on this guy. Or actually, I'm going to try to get positioning on him. I'm going to use my ace pilot that I just drew. I'm going to, well, yeah, I'm using my ace pilot. So he can try to counter it, which he should, because if this fails, he gets put into a tailed position, and my next card will be tone to try and get a missile off against him. So he has 5 cards. He needs a 4 to react. He rolled a 9, so he gets to react. So we will temporarily put this here. We'll roll. It's a 5. Against maneuvering, a 5 is nothing. I am on his tail. My next play is tone steady. This gives me, I can launch a missile, and my missile gets 1 extra card. So because I am in a advantaged or tailing position here, your missiles have three signs on here. The first one is neutral position, advantaged position, tailed position. So since I'm in tailing position, I get 3 cards. I'd get 1 if we were advantaged like that, but I'm actually in the best position I can be. So we're firing a missile. Actually, no, we've got tone. We have to resolve the tone first. So he gets to attempt to disrupt this tone and break it. Okay. So we roll. He still has 5 cards. Okay. He has 5 cards. Okay, he rolled a 5 + 5 is a 10. So he is going to try to break the tone. Okay. We roll again. He rolled an 8. So on tone, an 8 is a break. So he's playing a break. Now, if I can counter the break, then my tone is good. And, well, then I think we would continue to try. He would continue to try to break it. I am going to play my barrel roll to disrupt his break attempt. So now he's going to try again. And he rolled a 3 this time with 3 cards left, so he cannot counter my barrel roll. And the tone is good, so now we are going to draw for the missile. Okay, so I get 4 cards. So these are for the missile now. These are the missiles cards. Okay, so first thing we do is he rolls again, and he's got 3 cards, +2, because if he doesn't make this, he's going to be destroyed. So he's getting a +5 on his roll, and he still needs a 9. And he got a 1. Okay, so 1 means that he can't counter my missile, and he's dead. So his cards will go to put his cards in the discard pile. I will put my missile cards in the discard pile. We'll remove aircraft 2. I'm going to flip his card. This is out as well. Okay. I'm now working on aircraft 3. It's still my turn. So he is at medium altitude and active homing range. So he is pretty far away. I'm going to play a yo-yo to try and move him to radar homing range. Okay, so he rolls. He's got all 5 cards. Rolled a 4, so that's a 9. So he is going to try to counter my yo-yo. He rolled a 1. So maneuvering is a break. So this is a break attempt by him. Can I counter break? I'm pretty sure I can. I use my barrel roll. So yeah, I'm trying the same thing again, and he's going to try to counter it. And this time it's a 7 plus a 4 is 11. So he is going to try to counter. And he drew a 1. So again, a 1 is again a break attempt. Or he's playing a break. And if I can counter it, then I can continue my turn. I'm actually going to end my turn. I'm going to give it up. I'm going to draw my 2 cards and sit tight for next turn. Okay, so he gets to draw 1. Okay, it's now his turn. This is round 2. So first thing we're going to do is, I guess he could turn his afterburners on. That's dangerous though. But we do need to check. So he's got 4 cards. He has 2 afterburners. So he gets +2, -4. So he gets a -2 on his roll. So he needs a 7, needs a 9 or a 10 to turn him on, and he rolled a 9. So his afterburners are on, which is good for me, but he gets another card. So that's kind of good for him as well. All right, so now we roll for altitude check. We rolled a 1. Okay, so less than a 3. I'm at a higher altitude. He's going to dive again, so he's going low. Wow. So he's going low, and he draws a card. Okay. Now we roll for the play card. So he rolled, oh wait. Yeah, we rolled a 5, plus he gets an additional 6, so that's an 11. So he's going to try to adjust range or position by 1. We'll try to adjust position by 1. He's going to go to heat seeking. Okay. I am not going to counter that because I actually want him to try to get closer. So we'll roll again. I rolled a 2 plus 6 is 8. So again, he gets to try to improve his position. So we'll go to gun, or his range rather, improve his range. Again, I am not going to counter. All right, so now we roll again for him, and he's got 5. He should only have 4 cards. Sorry. Okay, so he has 4 cards. Roll a 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. His turn's over. Okay, so he's going to draw a card. And now it's my turn, and I have 7, so I don't draw anything. I am going to... What am I going to do here? I am going to drop in altitude. And I'm going to get a card for doing that. And now, because I am in heat-seeking range and I am at medium altitude, that activates their missile site. So we are resolving a possible surface-to-air missile attack by the Egyptian SA-7 site against my Mirage III. We will draw 6 cards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put the other ones back. Okay, so now if any of these 6 are a tone, then they get a tone on me, and there's a tone. Okay, and it doesn't matter if there had been more than one tone, you still get one shot. So they get a shot. All right. So now I have to check and see if I can counter that. Okay, so I am going to use my guns card here to react to the missile. It says react to missile. So that will mean I avoid the missile and play resumes. Okay, so I am going to try to get position on him. And I have 2 tone strong cards. So I'm going to play a tone strong for a positioning of 2 to try and get on his tail. Okay, so we will roll. He has 5 cards. He needs a 4. He gets a 1. So I am on now successfully on his tail. Okay, now that I am on his tail, I'm going to play a tone strong. Again, this one has a +2. If it's successful, I'll actually draw 5 cards for the missile. So now he has 4, or he still has 5, I'm sorry. He has 5. He needs a 4 again, and he gets a 4. So he is going to play a card here. And we roll again, and it's a 1. So he's playing a break against my against the tone. So if I have something that counters break, which I do, I have yo-yo. So I'm going to play yo-yo to counter his break. Now he's going to try again, and he has 4 cards left. He rolls a 6, that's 10. So he again is going to try to counter my break. And he rolls a 6, and it's a vertical roll. So I'm going to counter that with another yo-yo card. And we continue. He's got 3 cards left. He rolls a 6, so he is going to try to counter again. He rolls a 10. So he is countering with an ace pilot. And I do not have anything that can counter ace pilot. So he does break tone on me, and he's going to draw a card for that, giving him 3. I am down to 3, so I am actually going to you know what, I'm going to play a tone card on him again. Why not? I still have it. I'm going to play it. So now he's got 3 cards, so he needs a 6. And he gets a 5. So I have successfully gotten tone. This is just a regular tone, so I just get the 3 cards for my Shafrir 2 missile. So I get 3 cards for my missile. Okay. Now he's got 3 cards left. He gets a +2, so he's going to get a +5 on his roll, so he needs a 4. And he got a 2. So he cannot counter my missile, and he gets shot down. And that, as they say, is that we have destroyed him as well. The Israeli mission is a success. Okay. So we would now at this point go on and calculate our victory points and so forth for the mission. Okay, so victory points in a campaign are based on did you complete the mission, which we did. So even though typically destroying a MiG-17 would get you 15 victory points, in this case, by winning, we get 46 victory points. The Egyptians get 0 victory points because they did not destroy the Mirage. So, moving on to mission number 2 here. If we bring this guy in again, okay. So we just played number 1 right here, right? We destroyed the 2 MiGs. We successfully avoided being shot down by the missile site. We get 46 victory points. If they had destroyed the Mirage, they would have gotten 47, and I would have gotten half of half of whatever aircraft I had destroyed. So we would then, as far as looking at the strategic victory, it tells you how many you need to achieve going all the way through. So I guess if the Israelis were victorious in every single one of these 6, that probably adds up to the 361 that you would need for a strategic victory in the campaign. We have number 2 would be next, where Israelis are low on fuel, and this would be a 2-on-2, and the Israelis would not be able to use afterburners, and they would have 2 Nesher S aircraft taking on 2 MiG-21 PF fish beds for the Egyptians. So I may play that. I might play out this whole campaign just to see, playing a campaign in the solo mode in this game. I've read some things on Board Game Geek about the game that seemed to be a little bit misleading, that the game was difficult, or that you couldn't play the campaign Solitaire, and so on and so forth. That neither one of those things is true. I would categorize this game as being of medium to low complexity at most. Once you actually play it, it's very straightforward. It's card management. The theme is done very, very well. You do get a feel for air combat. Air combat is difficult to do in a board game because it's 3-dimensional, and you have speed, and you have various capabilities of your aircraft and things, and that's difficult to model in a fairly simple way for a board game. Air combat is probably much more suited to a computer game for obvious reasons, graphics being one of them, but even just in trying to kind of figure out the logistics of or maybe not the logistics, but the mechanics of the combat itself, especially jet combat, where jets are extremely deadly these days, or even going back for the last 50 plus years, jets have been extremely deadly air combat. So to try and model that in a board game is difficult, and I think Dan Verssen Games has done a tremendous job here with this game in terms of keeping it relatively simple, putting it in a card-driven, card management type format, where you're basically playing off the aircraft cards and using action cards to kind of manage the various tactics and events that take place in air combat. So this game to me is extremely well done, and I'm surprised, I guess, a little bit at how well it does, because having been in the Air Force, I was a little bit skeptical about could a game, a card game, basically, give me a feel of aerial combat, and it does. And so I congratulate Dan Verssen and DVG on a great job doing this. And I probably am just going to complete the series here. I could do 6 videos and do 1 on each mission, and then the follow-on missions hopefully won't be quite as long as this video, because in this video obviously I did talk about the mechanics of the game and trying to give you guys a feel for how it works. So there will be less of that in succeeding missions, obviously, because hopefully you will have watched the first one and understand how the game works, and then you can just kind of follow along as I play out the ensuing missions here to see if I can complete the Yom Kippur War with an Israeli victory. So thank you for watching, as always. This has been Hexed Encountered on the Legend Sport channel. I'm Joe. Please like, subscribe, and share. Help me grow the channel. Things have been going pretty well. I'm happy. And I appreciate, everyone who's subscribed and everyone who's watched. And just, again, I hope you will consider subscribing if you have not already. Consider at least sharing it or liking it on YouTube to help raise the visibility of the channel. And so, if you can help me out there, great. Otherwise, thanks for watching at least. And until next time, happy gaming.